Okay. So welcome everyone to the Sunset Silhouette Painting. My name is Anita Thompson. I own Art Venture Workshops. I'm a mobile-based artist who teaches art workshops for all ages, mostly through libraries, but some rec centers, and I do other things. So tonight, we're going to start off using our pencil to draw this. This class should be approximately maybe about an hour and a half, give or take a bit. It will be recorded. If for whatever reason you can't make the rest of it, you can watch the recording. I'll send it out to Chrissy as soon as Zoom, gives it to me. It's usually about a half hour afterward. So I'll pop it on over to her. And then when Chrissy gets a chance, she will send it out to you. Just as a reminder, the libraries are incredibly busy right now. So I know she'll send it when she can. Okay, so again, the paint is red, orange, yellow, white, and black. And we're going to get started. So I also want to remind everyone to make sure that you are on speaker view so that you are able to see this large. And again, any questions, you can put those in the chat. All right, so we're going to start. We're coming from the top of our canvas and we're going down. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to make a line for our horizon line. And it's probably about, I guess it's about halfway down. Yeah, it's about halfway down our canvas board. So we're going to make that line straight across. Like so. And then what we're going to do, basically, we're going to be drawing out the area of where the land is happening in the back. We're going to do this small area up front or at the bottom of our canvas, really, but without the weeds. And then we'll be doing the sun and also the crane. And then we're actually going to be hand painting all of the reeds and the weeds. So just to give you a heads up about that. So let's go back over to our horizon line here, and we're just going to briefly sketch in the mountain in the back to the left. And then on the right side, we're also going to be sketching a little bit of another mountain here to the right, like so. So you should have something that looks like this. And I'll just make sure everyone's caught up. Okay. Now we're going to come down to the bottom of our canvas here. And here is where we're going to be making the basic shape of the land that we see. So we're going to start off on the bottom left corner of our canvas. We're going to curve and go up and down again on the left side, on the right side, excuse me. So let's start that. So again, this is the bottom portion of where our crane is going to be sort of stepping, and also with all of our weeds and our reeds coming out of, but we won't be drawing those. We will be doing those by hand using the paint. Let me move this up a bit. I'm realizing I think I need to, there we go up a little bit with my camera. Okay, excuse my fussing. All right, so we have our basic shapes here. We're also going to draw the stones right here in the water. So we have 4 stones that are happening here. We have one that is flat on the bottom, a little bit pointier on the top. We have another one It's a little bigger. Two more that are a little bigger. And then one that is in the distance. And just take your time with those. Okay. So next, we now have our crane. Before we do that, I do want to sketch in a little bit of our sun. And so that sun is going to go in the middle here and a bit above our horizon line because we have some clouds that will be happening around there. So we're going to draw a small sun that will be setting. And then we're going to start our crane, which is going to be about where the sun is, but to the right. So we're going to start, but obviously he's in front of us. The sun is way back there. So we're going to start off with his pointy beak here. It's kind of like almost like a swan head. And it's going to kind of curve around, going down past, we're kind of breaking the horizon line. And you might want to, as you're doing this, make sure that you are doing both sides here as far as drawing. So his neck is kind of literally kind of crunched a bit. We have his long, this part that's very long. And then we're going to go out a little bit here with his feathers. So we're doing the silhouette. So basically, we're going to do the shape of his body first, along with, you can see the silhouette of his feathers on both sides. A little bit of bumpiness there to indicate his tail feathers here. I'm going to erase this part of his neck a little bit. And you might want to erase the horizon line that kind of cuts through so that now he's standing in front of us. And then we're going to make both of his legs. I like to start off with stick figures. And then add just a little bit of sort of a triangular shape to the top part of his legs. Like so. And guess what? We have our drawing, and now we get to do the paint part. So I'll make sure everyone is caught up on that part before we start. And we're going to be starting off with the sky. We're going to be starting off with yellow. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be covering the background in yellow, the sky. We're going to be leaving the mountains here uncolored or unpainted. And we're still going to be coloring all around the sun as well. And then we'll go back in and we'll start adding orange and some orange and red here along where the sun is setting. So let's get started with our flat brush. I like to wet mine a little bit in the water and then just tap it a little on my paper towel. And we're literally going to start at the top and go side to side and go all the way across and work our way down for the first part, or I should say, first layer of the sky, because there's a lot of colors mixed in there, but our base color is yellow. Now, you don't have to go side to side for the whole thing. You can, go side to side, and then, as you can see, I'm painting downward to go faster. And then when you're finished with applying the paint, you can then make sure that your strokes are going side to side. So basically, this is just as we are applying the paint. Remember, we are painting around the sun. We are also painting around um, our crane. So if you need to use the smaller round brush, you can do that also. I like to sort of switch to that in the tighter spots. Your sky is going to be a nice bright yellow. Make sure you go right up against the horizon line there where it meets the water. Making sure that you have um, the whole top part of your canvas colored or painted. And then being careful as you paint around your crane. One more here. So obviously we're going to be doing the background first, and then last will be the parts in black for the most part. So you do want to make sure to get right up where your crane is, where your sun is, so that you have a background color there. And we are going to start mixing our other colors for sky. Sure. When you are ready, we're going to mix up two more colors. The two other colors that we're going to be mixing up are going to be orange and red so that we get sort of a tomato red. And then we're going to take a little bit of that tomato red and we're going to add yellow to it. So we've got orange. This is orange and red. And then that orange and red, I moved it over a little bit to the right so that I could mix some yellow in with it. So we're going to have a gradation of colors that are going to happen in the sky. And then we're going to mix one more color, which is going to be yellow and white, so that we have a incredibly light yellow, kind of like a lemon yellow. So another color is some yellow and some white, so that it is a lighter yellow than what you have on your palette. It should be like a very light yellow. So I'll say the colors again. Basically, you're going to be making, we have our orange already. Then you're going to mix orange and red to get sort of a tomato, kind of a tomato red. You're going to take a bit of that tomato red and you're going to add some yellow to it. And we're going to mix one more color. This is all for the sky. We're basically going to be using it in the sky and obviously in the water. The next color we're going to mix is going to be orange and black. So the next color is orange and black. You want more orange than black for now. That is going to be the color of the mountain in the back on the left. And then we're going to lighten it up to go on the right. I'm going to add a little more orange to this. I added a little bit too much black. There's the color. Oh, I just realized I don't think I spotlighted my video, or I think I had a phone call that happened on my phone and it kind of knocked it off. So sorry about that. I just realized. So that is, it's sort of a brownish. That's what we're trying to achieve. So again, the colors that we're going to be using for the sky, we have our yellow that's already down there. We're going to be using some orange. And then we mixed orange and red together to get this tomato red. We made it a bit bigger so that we could then take a portion of it and add a little bit more yellow to it, which is right here. Then we took yellow and added white to get this light, kind of lemony yellow color. And then finally, we have orange with black. So let's get started. We're still using our flat brush here. And we're going to get started in the top part of the sky. And we're going to be adding that yellowish white color. So basically, what we're going to be doing is they're going to be strokes, very colorful strokes coming through the sky. So I'm coming up here in the left-hand corner. Oops. Please ignore that brown stripe that I just added that was still in my brush there. I'm going to brush over it. But so we're adding a bit of the light happening throughout the sky first. So we're adding in that lemon yellow color here on the left. So it should look like it's kind of streaky. And we can add a little bit in coming from the right side as well. You know, if you have to mix up more, don't worry, you can do that. We're also going to be taking that lemon yellow down toward the sun. So basically on the left side of the sun and sort of on top. So think, you know, these are kind of clouds that are happening on either side of the sun. Okay, so your sky should be sort of streaky with that light yellow and yellow. And then we're also going to be mixing up one more color. So we're going to mix up an orange, a little bit of some red, and some white in order to get a bit of a peach color. It's going to look a bit pink. So again, the next color that we're going to mix is using some orange, a little bit of some red, like just a tiny drop of red, and then some white in order to get like a pinky peach. Now that color is going to go above on the left side of our mountain here, like so. And go across underneath our sun and all the way across on the right side at the bottom, and we're going to be blending it upward in strokes in the sky coming from the right side. So again, this is our second layer. And we're going to add a bit to the middle part of our sky. Now, again, here's the thing. If your sky doesn't look exactly like mine, that's okay. We just want it to be very colorful. We are going to add some to the left side here, coming from kind of the middle portion of it. You know, mixing in with our yellow. You know, make sure to get up toward where your crane is. And then we're going to start adding in the next color, which is going to be this one, which was the tomato red, but with more of the yellow. And that is going to go on the right bottom part of the sunset here. Again, we're going to make it kind of glide into the rest. We're going to go on the bottom portion of the sky going across. So you can see how it's a little bit darker here and here. And we're going to go up in the right corner as well. You want to get to a point where your brush is a little bit dry. The paint is sort of drying on it, so that you can start blending this color in as you're moving your brush back and forth. So you want sort of the edges of the paint to start to blend into the yellow and the rest of the sunset. And I added just a little bit here on the left, but I'm blending it out. So again, I add just a little bit and then I'm blending it out with a bit of the brush being dry. Now, I haven't washed off my brush. We're going to get into some orange on our brush. And we're going to start over on the left side above where the mountain is. And I have just a little bit of orange on my brush, and I'm going to start to smooth that into the sky. Like so. So again, I'm waiting for the brush or, you know, I keep smoothing it out. See how it's nice and smooth there because I've taken the wet paint and I'm smoothing it with the dry brush to let it blend. I'm going to add some more orange here on the left side in where we added the peach. It's a bit more vibrant there. You also want to add some here on the left side. So this part in the back, this part of the sky in the back is a little bit fading. And so I add a little bit of orange. And again, I'm kind of, you know, putting it on with my brush, but doing it very lightly. Now you can add more orange anywhere you want. I like to add just a tiny bit over here. Again, you can see that there's a little bit on my brush, but it's very light. Guess what? We're going to add back in some of our bright yellow in the top left corner here. And as we go towards the bottom of the sun. So you want to make sure to wash your brush. And wipe it off. Dab on some yellow. Because we're going to start now and add back some yellow in this part here and this part here, both on the left and the right. So, because we want to fade out the top part of this bump that we created, we're just going to kind of fade that out by dabbing on some yellow. This is just pure yellow. And we're going to go into sort of that peachy orange that we did, just dabbing on some yellow on top of it while it's still a little wet. And then we're going to go next to the sun, where we're going to add some more yellow to the left of it. So you can see that getting brighter. And we're also going to go so to the left of it and a bit to the right of it. And that's going to bring us into this, the darker area here that we did, or it's kind of brighter. And we're just going to add some splotches of yellow, kind of like we're creating clouds on top of the pink and the red. So I'm taking my brush and I'm kind of almost like dotting it as if I'm making a line. But I'm kind of dotting it so that it's covering over and blending in with the orangey there. And then we're going to add a little bit of red before we jump into the darker part of back there. So you're going to want to rinse your brush. And we're going to get into a little more of that tomato red. We're going to add just a little bit more red to it. And we're going to start over here on the left. And just like we were kind of dotting along with the color, we're going to do the same here, but we're going to make like lines going towards the sun and underneath. And then on the right side in the bottom portion of where we have the orange and the kind of tomato color, I'm gonna add a little bit over here. We're gonna blend that out again, especially on the left side, so that it's not so sharp. You know, if you have to add a little more yellow, um, that's fine. You know, if it's too red. We want streaks of yellow to be kind of shining through where we add that red on the left. So I like to go back and just kind of dot in a little more yellow on top of what we did. And when you're done with that, you're going to then want to paint your sun white. I use my round brush to do that. We want a nice glowing sun. And around it, we're going to be adding more yellow. But first, we want to paint that sun, as I mentioned, a nice white, nice ball of white. So that it's glowing. And then right around it, we're going to add some white and the yellowish white that we were, you know, kind of like that lemon yellow on either side of the sun and underneath. And again, I'm using my round brush. And this is where if you want to add more yellow to your sky anywhere, you can do that. I'm adding just a little bit. And then we are going to add a bit more of the white to kind of, we have that round sun, and then just a little bit to expand the circle a little, just so that it looks like it's shining a little more. So what I did was, I did the round part of it, then took just a little bit of the white to kind of push it out. And then our next step is using that brown that we created for the mountain in the back on the left. So you can add water to your paint if it's too thick. And this is where I was mentioning to always make sure you have a point on your brush. You're going to add the paint to it. And I'm going to roll my brush and move it towards me so that as I'm rolling, I roll the brush on my plate so that the point really becomes pointy. Like that. And now we're going to paint that mountain. This is also where, if you wanted to, you could use, um, a really fine brush. We're going to add a little bit of black to this too. We want to make sure that we really kind of edge it out as it gets a little bit smaller here toward the sun. And then we're going to do the same thing right behind on the right side, going into the horizon. And we are going to be fading it out on the right side after we do it. Add a little more water here. So the way that we kind of fade this out on the right side is by adding some more orange to it so that it gets a little bit lighter. You want to add just a tiny bit, how we did that, the orange and the brown a little bit here above where we did, because it's kind of fading out into the sky. Again, I'm just adding some orange to that brown in order to fade it out as it goes toward the sunset there. And I like to add just a little bit of orange on top of the brown here on the left side. And we're going to start repeating the process for the bottom. But if you want to get some fresh water for this last part, um, you can do that now. Mine's pretty muddy, so I'm going to get some fresh water. And then we're going to start in the bottom using the same process, starting off with yellow. So we're now going to be covering everything yellow, except what we're going to do is we're going to create a part in the middle where the sun is shining on the water. So we're not going to color in that part. So basically, we're going to create kind of like a line that separates both sides, and we're going to paint on either side of that line using yellow. We'll go back and we will make it, some parts of it a bit more yellow. But for now, you're going to make two lines of yellow down the middle where underneath where the sun is. And then you're going to paint your first layer of yellow on either side of those lines. You're going to make sure you paint around the stones on the left side. So you may have to use, if you have to use your other brush to do that, you can. Or if you think you can do it with your flat brush, by all means. And then obviously we're going to very delicately go around our crane as well. So you want to switch to your smaller brush, especially like in between where his legs are. You might want to kind of outline the yellow right next to him. We use a lot of yellow in this. Exactly what we did for the sky. And all the work is really in the water and the sky. Not much, not much in the darker parts, although I think they're really fun. Okay, so we are going to start off with our light parts. And so this is where we come back to our lemon yellow, right? Our very light yellow. You want to mix some more. So that's the white and the yellow. So we're going to start off with the lightest colors. And so we're going to start on the left-hand side and make it look like that there are light, like it's light yellow, kind of strokes in the water going from left to right. But we're going to go really light right where the stones are on the left side. So this is on the left side of our water. We're going to do the same thing. Right on the right side, but we're going to just add a little less. And we're going to keep that yellow on the left side of that whole section because it gets a lot darker. And then in our medium part, and you want to make sure you have some of that lemon yellow mixed up, because when you're finished with that part, you're going to go on either side of where we didn't paint, and you're going to make little streaks of that white yellow so that it's now blending in a bit with the water. So I'm taking my brush and going like this right on top of it, because we're going to make that water shiny. And we're going to do that by adding white to the top of that shine on the water. And then the other part's going to be more yellow. But we're going to start off first with just white. So I'm washing out my brush. And we're still we're still using the flat brush. And I know our canvas is white, but it's not as white as our white paint. And so what we're going to do is we're going to paint down the middle of where we didn't paint, and we're using white. And then we're going to start making it expand like this. And then when you're ready, you're going to take some of that more of that pure yellow, and using your round brush, you're going to paint in some lines on either side of the white so that basically it's kind of going into the white a little bit so that it looks like it's shining. And then we have it very yellow down here. There our rocks are. We're going to go back in and we're going to add some orange too. And then we're going to rinse off both of our brushes so that we have them available for the next part, which is going to be adding in little by little the colors that we added up here in the sky. And we're going to start off first with that peachy pink color. So you have to mix that again. That is orange, tiny bit of red, and then some white. And we're going to streak that through on the left side, really light. So you see, I went really light on my brush, and I'm kind of lifting up my brush as I'm painting across. We're especially going to make sure that we have a bit of this color here on the left side. Now there's hardly any paint on my brush so that I can blend it into the yellow that we have so far in the water. And we're going to do the same on the right side and in the middle here, right up against our crane. To mix a little bit more here. So we're going to go right up to, our highlights, our highlighted water here. And then the water is very pink on the right side. There's a lot more of it. So again, I'm just very lightly brushing on that color. It is going to get a little darker here on the right, bottom right side of the painting. So I went in and added a little more red. And again, you're going to start streaking it across. On top of the yellow. And we're going to add in some orange. So here again, on the right side, we are mainly working on the right side now because it's darker. Adding in streaks of orange. You know, everyone's is going to look different. But it's definitely darker here on the right side. You can go back and even add more yellow if you want. You want to make sure to definitely get in between the legs. To make it blend a little more, you can add yellowish orange as another color here to the left side of your crane. And even a little more on the left. And again, I like to go back in and add some more yellow while my brush is wet. Like I don't rinse off my brush. And then I start to sort of just go throughout and add more yellow on top so that it really gets this nice layered water look. And we are going to add some brown in the back. The other thing I like to do is go down a little bit more past, using the orangey red down here on the right side to make sure that we go down a bit further when we start, so that when we start the black, there's definitely enough of the background color. And we're going to add a little bit of that brown that we made using the orange and the black. Just a little bit here on the right side, some streaks, very light streaks on the right side in the water. And I use my round brush for that. It's just because it's a bit darker on this side. Some more orange on top so that it lightens it. And I like to go back and add a little more of that lemon yellow again on either side, and a little bit of some white even on either side of the parts where we added the sunburst, or the sun on the water. And guess what? It's time for the black. Start off at the bottom and make that shape black. You're going to make it a little bumpy going along the bottom. And I use my flat brush for that, but then I switch to my detail brush for the rest. Which is, first I like to go and paint the crane. Again, use a lot of water with your black so that it's almost like an ink-like consistency the first time. And you can outline it. You can get to his legs. Is the part that takes a bit of some concentration. And then at the bottom of his legs, you're going to see a little bit of some, it's kind of him in the water. And there is, you use the black to make it a bit staggered right under him. Because that's on the water, his reflection or shadow, I should say. And you're going to take the time to paint the rocks, but they're pretty quick, just kind of silhouettes. And we can't forget the birds in the air too. Our last part is really the all the weeds and the reeds. Here again, you want to use either a very light, a very small brush, or just use the point of your brush with just a tiny bit of, I'm going to go in really close now that we are rounding out the finish line here. And with the reeds, start off with the thicker ones first that are down here. And what I'm doing is I'm barely touching the canvas as I'm doing this. Make some that are a little thicker. And we have some that look like, um, some flowers. You can do anything that you want. Really thin grasses, some thicker ones that are kind of bending towards your crane, and then others that are kind of going the other way. You can kind of have fun with it. And you want some on the left side to come out into the sky. Some kind of wheat looking ones here. Give everybody another minute or two, and then I can't wait to see what everybody's looks like. Yeah. So I'm going to remove my spotlight and I'll stop the recording.